If you're trying to stay in a calorie deficit and you're hungry all the time and you're thinking about food constantly and the scale is not even moving, most likely there's a problem there. And it's not necessarily discipline. It can be a part of it, but it's mostly about how you're actually approaching what a calorie deficit is and how to manage it. And there's typically 6 mistakes that most people make. And I'm gonna be sharing each one of them with you. But not only that, I'm gonna give you a fix for each and a diagnostic test to understand exactly what could be the problem. Hey guys, my name is Andres. I'm a registered dietitian. Welcome back to my channel. My job and my goal is simple. I try to turn nutrition information into something chewable and simple and something that you can use to help you build the right framework and the right system for you. 600 plus people have gone through our blueprint program, which is our signature methodology that teaches people exactly how to do this the right way. Not only that, but also keep the weight off. So if this is somewhat interesting to you and you really want to learn more about the stuff that I teach, make sure you hit the little subscribe button right there and so you get more of this content. Now let's get a little bit into today's topic. Now we know we need to be on a calorie deficit to lose weight. It's all about the math. No, I'm not saying it's just only calories in, calories out. There's a lot more that goes into it, and we're gonna go through it a little bit today. But at the end of the day, if you're not losing weight and you're in a calorie deficit, the reality, my friend, is that you're not really in a calorie deficit. And that is the ugly truth. And I see this way too often. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I even sometimes used to believe that, oh, there's gotta be something going on. And in some cases there could be, but the reality is most people just don't know how to adequately balance or maintain a calorie deficit because it's not always easy, particularly depending on who you are. Here are 6 mistakes that most likely you either have made or are making or will make if you don't necessarily know about this. Mistake number 1, your calorie deficit is too steep. You think that the bigger the deficit means the faster the results. And we're seeing this in people who do GLP-1s. They're eating 800 calories, 600 calories. And the reality is that's not sustainable. Most people think it's a shorter runway, but the reality is that your body's just not burning fat. It's just trying to survive. And it turns down something called NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. You move less, you fidget less, like the kind of things that I'm currently doing right now. You do less of that. You walk slower. You take the elevator without even deciding to. Your body quietly claws back part of the deficit that you built because essentially it's trying to readjust with the less amount of energy that you're giving it. Now you're eating less, but also you're burning less. So then what do? You actually cut again and you go lower and lower and lower, and that's the spiral. Here's how you fix that problem. Number 1, you need to set a realistic rate of weight loss. And for most people, I recommend anywhere between 0.5 to 1% of their body weight per week. That usually translates to most people to about 1 to 2 pounds. Some people can be higher. So if you weigh 300 pounds, 1% of that is going to be 3 pounds. So 3 pounds per week, that's gonna be what's recommended. Slower is not weaker. It's actually what is sustainable. So let me ask you a question. Do you typically try to cut way too aggressively every single diet that you've done? And if so, that's part of the problem and why you have not been able to sustain it. Mistake number 2, you're under eating protein. Everyone knows protein matters. I'm not gonna here and sit and tell you about it. I've made tons of videos about it, but nobody's actually hitting this consistently. Protein is the most filling macronutrient you have. Same calories, but then you create more fullness because it takes a little bit longer to process and digest. Low protein means you pay the full calorie price and you get almost none of the satiety. And typically you overeat because of the fact that you're just not hungry. And in a deficit, your body is definitely going to be hungry. And also, your body's shopping for tissue to give up, essentially to get energy from because you're not giving it enough energy. So not enough protein not only is going to affect your ability to be able to maintain adequate satiety, but at the same time, it's not gonna allow you to maintain or build muscle through the process, which is actually going to expose it to be burned as energy. So you may be losing weight, particularly if you're able to sustain that deficit, but you're losing all kinds of weight, and that's not something that you wanna do. So let me give you sort of like a case study. So let's say somebody tells me that they're starving on 1,800 calories a day. So what I typically do is I look at what the 1,800 calories look like, and we typically rebuild those 1,800 calories around protein, and usually hunger tends to drop. It's the same deficit, it's just a different build. If I tell you exactly what 1,800 calories with 150 grams of protein look like, and I'm 1,800 calories with half of that, the reality is that you're going to be more satisfied eating one versus the other. That's gonna create a better result. Not only that, but at the same time, better body composition changes. So here's how you fix that. Take your weight, multiply times 0.7 to 1 gram, and that's going to give you the total amount of grams of protein you need to be consuming. If you have more than 20 to 30 pounds that you need to lose, that means you're probably on the more obese category according to BMI standards, which I don't love. But ultimately, in that case, you're probably going to be using 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight, using your goal weight as the number that you use to multiply for those. You need to focus on protein first on every single plate, asking yourself, is there protein in here? And you build the rest of your meals around it. You don't have to rebuild your whole entire diet. You just need to focus on anchoring your meals around protein and then just keeping the way it already is. Here's the mistake number 3. Your food is too easy to overeat. Not that food is bad. It's just simply built to go down fast depending on what you're eating. See, your fullness signals, they kind of run in a bit of a delay. Okay, so the way that it happens is you eat, the food arrives to your stomach. The stomach is a bag that gets filled, but sometimes the signal between the stomach that says, hey, I'm full, and the brain sometimes gets delayed. So it's very easy to overconsume, particularly foods that are going to be hyper palatable. And usually these are going to be ultra processed or processed foods. These are going to add a lot of calories, low volume, little fiber, and they have engineered texture to help you want to have more. In control settings, particularly in studies when they're looking at this stuff, people eat several hundred more calories a day this way without reporting more hunger and without noticing. That's the design of the food industry. You're not supposed to notice. You want to just simply buy more of that stuff or buy the bigger bags. Examples of this: chips, liquid calories, typically restaurant meals because they use some of the stuff, dessert, the small handful of something dense that doesn't really register as a meal, cookies, pastries, things like that. And the reality, I'm not here to tell you to ban those things. You don't have to ban anything. You need to change the ratio within your diet. You got to build most of your intake from actual food with volume, fiber, and protein. Whole foods for the most part, and the rest can fit. And it's actually better this way. I like to call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of everything you consume, try to make it more minimally processed to whole foods, and then you can have the other 20% being all those options as well. This is not necessarily a willpower problem. You got to understand this. Fullness and hunger management are real things that your body's trying to fight for. Eating foods that are hyper palatable is not going to make it any easier. And even though you can, it's really hard to sustain. Mistake number 4, healthy does not mean low calorie. Here's the thing, nobody thinks that a donut is calorie free. In fact, they think the opposite. Oh, that's so many calories. But the same people don't necessarily think about a green juice or a smoothie the same way. What if I told you that sometimes they can have the same amount of calories? This is a psychological marketing scheme, right? Not necessarily a metabolic reality here. When a food reads as healthy, you probably are more inclined to serve yourself more of it, or essentially say, oh, I can probably have this because it's considered healthy. A lot of times you also even log less of it because of the fact that you think it's a healthy thing. So you are committing 2 errors in the same direction. Not only the healthfulness of the meal, but also the calorie density of it. And you're feeling like, oh, this is not that many calories. And then you typically underreport it, which means you typically log or count less than what it actually is. The reality is your body can't read a label, right? So you have to be aware of the fact that number 1, healthy foods are not calorie free. They still contain calories and sometimes even more than their counterparts that are not considered quote unquote healthy. This is why I don't like to think about good and bad food or healthy and unhealthy, because the reality is that you can gain weight eating a lot of healthy foods. I mean, some examples: granolas, smoothies, nut butters, olive oil, avocados, restaurant salads, protein bars. These are not bad foods. They can actually have higher protein and micronutrients and all these different things. They're genuinely fine. It's mostly how you're incorporating it within a specific calorie budget that you need to manage. I'm gonna give you an example in here. Like, let's say you have like a 16-ounce green juice can and it has 250 calories, almost no protein and no fiber. You drank a meal and you're hungry in 40 minutes, mostly because you probably had 60 grams of sugar. The juice didn't really lie. It's more like the health halo effect that does that. Stop sorting food into good or bad or healthy or unhealthy. Sort it into really what it costs to your budget and what it gives you. Almond butter can cost you 200 calories a serving, and it gives you fat and satiety, worth it if you counted it. The question you need to be asking yourself right now is like, do you sometimes feel that some healthy foods you consume are either calorie free, or you have a little bit more leniency towards having bigger amounts of it than not necessarily counted towards like your total budget for the day? At the end of the day, this is a budgetary strategy and you have to really stick to your budget. The best analogy that I can give you is like, I'm giving you $1,000 to spend. You can spend it on something really stupid, or you can spend it on something that you feel like is going to help you. Even though you can spend $1,000 in something probably more valuable to you and that is going to help you more, at the end of the day, you're still going to be left with $1,000 left. And that's the way I want you to think about this. Let's get into mistake number 5. You're undercounting food and overcounting exercise. And this is so common. You are wrong on both ends of the equation, and then you blame your metabolism for this. Here's the reality. When you compare what people report eating to what they actually eat, the gap can run anywhere between 20 to 40%. And this has been shown in studies. I mean, I get it. That's just being human. Even like me as a person who understands nutrition, I underestimate sometimes things that I eat. I forget. It's typically things that hides in like the oil in the pan, the bites like that you eat while you're cooking, maybe the handful that you took off of your kids' plate, the 2 drinks that you had on Friday and didn't really consider them as like something higher calorie. None of it actually feels like you're eating a meal, but it still counts. It's still part of the budget. It's like, again, back to the analogy, like, oh my God, where did my money go? Well, like you were buying $6 coffees like 4 days a week. So what did you expect, right? And these are things that don't necessarily feel like a lot, but you still continue to spend money on it. The same thing with your calories. And then at the end of the day, also, this is another thing of it that really kind of comes into play, which is your calories out, which is the amount of calories your body's burning. Your watch says that you're burning 600 calories. It didn't. Fitness trackers always overestimate energy burn, often pretty badly. Sometimes it's just not very accurate. So what happens is you typically eat back the calories that you never spent. And this is the problem with a lot of like food tracker apps that sometimes would account for that. Oh, I worked out, so I earned this. That's the most expensive sentence in fat loss, and you should not be really sticking to that. 300 invisible calories in, and then you have 3 imaginary calories out. That's your entire deficit. That's 600 calories more than what you thought you were consuming or that you were allowed to consume. And that erases a deficit. Now, here's the fix. You don't have to track forever to be able to understand your numbers. Plenty of people are able to hold a deficit without ever having to log a thing. But if you're struggling with this and you're not seeing something happening, this is typically the fastest tool that I personally use and use with my clients to show you where your calories actually live. Here's a suggestion I'll give you. Audit 3 typical days for you, like everything. Be perfect about it. Be obsessed about every single thing that you eat. Weigh the oils, log the bites. Ignore what your watch tells you that you need to eat back. You're going to find a lot of things into it. And every single person, which by the way, I do this for free for some people, they literally tell me like, oh my God, I did not realize I was eating this much. Trust me, this is not your fault. It's just simply just lack of awareness around this. And the last mistake is that your weekend is erasing your week. Here's the reality. 5 perfect days and 2 lose days, that's not gonna cut it. And a lot of times people are like, I don't understand why nothing is moving. Well, think about it this way. You eat 500 calories under your budget, so essentially you develop a 500 calorie deficit for 5 days. That's 2,500 calories that you have on a deficit in the bank for the whole week. Now, let's say that you had 2 weekend days and you actually overconsume about 1,000 calories. So instead of consuming, the amount of calories you were supposed to consume, you actually went over 1,000 on both days. That erases all of your deficit and puts you ahead. You spend an entire week to actually break even. But the weekend is just where it shows up. The real mistake underneath is thinking a deficit is a daily event. It isn't. You have to think about your deficit as a weekly average that only means anything across a month. One bad day inside of a good week is noise. You'll never see it on the scale, but if you judge yourself daily, that noise can read as failure. And failure is what makes people quit on a Tuesday. How does this translate into? Well, you ate a little bit too much one day and then you step on the scale the next day and you have 1 pound extra. That's a normal fluctuation, right? And you got to understand that you need to look at the whole week, at the whole month, instead of just looking at the daily things that you do. Here's where this stuff shows up. Like you have the perfect plan up until Friday, and then Saturday hits around, nothing gets planned. You're like, oh, I just want to give myself like the freedom to eat whatever. You improvise. You're not necessarily have a structure for it. What happens? Like that's what you're going to definitely overeat. And at the same time, you have been maintaining a deficit for a while. So your body's like, okay, I'm running a little bit low here. So, and then you make all the other mistakes that I just mentioned here before. Here is how you fix this. Listen closely. You had to stop building a weekday diet. You had to build a 7-day system for you. The protein anchor holds on Saturday too. You need to plan the restaurant meals ahead of time instead of just simply going there and just winging it. And if your days go sideways, the next meal of the next day is a reset, not next Monday. And there you have 6 mistakes that you can immediately fix. Now, let me ask you a question. Let's kind of like run a diagnosis for you. which one do you think your problem is? Now, if your problem is hunger, typically mistakes 1, 2, and 3 are the main thing. Your deficit is too steep, your protein is too low, or the food that you're actually eating is most likely very hyperpalatable and is not necessarily controlling your hunger very well. If your calories look right and nothing is happening, mistakes probably 4, 5, and 6 could be the issue. The halo effect about healthy foods, the blind spots, or the weekend stuff. What I want you to do this week is I want you to pick one of the mistakes that you have and then try to implement the fix that I gave you. When you try to do all this stuff at once, this is exactly how you fix none of them. None of these are about wanting more. This is not about the willpower effect on this. Like you have to power through this stuff. No. The too steep of a deficit, too little protein, the food that outruns your fullness, the health halo effect that just boils my blood and the people can't see past, the blind spots all around. Like these are the things that create the problems. And they get fixed with the right strategies and the right systems in place. You fix this like root causes and the same deficit issue actually stops becoming a problem and you start to lose weight more consistently and more sustainably. You don't necessarily need to be searching for more motivation, more discipline, or like something medical that is wrong with you because like your deficit is not working. You just need better systems for your life. You need the better framework. You need a better plan for this stuff. Here's a question I'll ask you and you can comment down below and let me know. Which one is making your deficit harder? Because I'm literally going to try to help you with this. Is it hunger? Is it just hitting your protein? Is it probably hitting calories you're not seeing? Is it easy food on the weekends? And if you want the system that we use with our clients, which is literally breaking through all of these mistakes and teaching them how to fix this with accountability, we actually have opening spots for a Blueprint Nutrition Coaching Program, which is very limited and very unique. The application for it is in the description. It's by application only. If we read through your application, you have a call with me or my team and we'll map out exactly what your strategy needs to look like. We'll show you the 10,000 foot view as far as like what you need to do, where we're headed and how we're going to get you there, and literally give you the game plan to be able to implement for you in the process. And if you want us to help you actually implement that, which is what most people typically do, we'll walk through what that looks like. And you enjoyed this video and you found it valuable and you thought like, oh wow, I need to implement some of these things, please hit the like button, hit share with somebody that you know could actually benefit from this. And of course, do not forget to hit subscribe. This increases the ability of more people to see my stuff. And also it tells me that people are enjoying my content, so I can put a lot more effort and a lot more energy into creating more videos for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next video.